So a couple years ago, I was heading home from work. I stopped on the Mandela Highway for a pedestrian to cross the road. And before you know it, bam! You know that expensive sound when another car colliding a car? Well, that time, it was my car. Another driver was distracted, using her cell phone, wasn't paying attention on the road, literally parked in my car. So my car couldn't drive, and for that day, I reckon I had to move it from point A to point B. So that's how significant the damage was. So give thanks. Fortunately, nothing happened to any of us that was in the car. And if you know anything about insurance in Jamaica, they really don't like pay out money. And I literally had to wait about 2 years to be reimbursed for the money that I used to repair the car. So why am I telling you this? The reason why I'm telling you this is because when an emergency happens, you have to be prepared for it financially, right? So if I didn't have an emergency fund, two things would have happened. Either I had to park the car and wait 2 years to get the money to fix the car, or two, I had to go to a bank to borrow some money to repair the car. And this is why it is important to have an emergency fund. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 6 practical steps that you can use to build an emergency fund really fast. So the first thing I want you to do is decide what is an emergency for you. Now, an emergency is not going to be your hair need to be done, so you're going to dip in your emergency fund. John Doe party I keep next Friday and you did have some money saving an account, that's not an emergency. You're not going to dip in that money to fund a party or that type of lifestyle. That is not an emergency. Not because you have the money, that means you're going to spend it. So you need to come up with a set of rules under which you can only spend your emergency fund if necessary. So for example, like I previously mentioned, a serious accident, then something like that, you're going to need to dip in your emergency fund. And something like a surgery, something that is really extreme. So if John Doe link you and say, boy, I'm short of some money, I need some help, your emergency fund is not John Doe's emergency fund. So might as well, if you might have a John Doe in your corner, you might want to share this video to them as well, because you have to learn to put on your own mask first. Take care of yourself first. But I'm not saying you can't help others, but if you're going to help others, make sure it's out of some extra spare change and not out of your emergency fund. Because what if something just happened and as you lend John Doe your money, something happened to you and you need that emergency fund? How are you going to get back that money? The next thing you need to do is set a monthly savings goal. This is the amount of money that you can consistently set aside out of your paycheck to fund your emergency fund. And you need to determine exactly how much money you need to survive. Like if you're supposed to lose your job right now, if you're supposed to get terminated right now, what is the exact amount of money that you could survive on? This includes like your car payment if you have one, if you have rent to pay, if you have a mortgage to pay, you have to factor in all those things. The amount of money you spend on groceries, you have to factor in that. And anything like party, you know, that can come, because that is not something that is essential for your living. So you need to figure out your bare minimum amount of money that you need to survive on each month. Then you're going to then multiply that by 12 and see how much you actually need to save for 1 year as an emergency fund. And it might seem daunting initially, but you're going to take this in stages. You're not going to say, boy, $1 million I need to survive, and say, boy, I can't save this amount of money, and get frustrated and quit. But the moment you quit, you're not going to have an emergency fund. So you're going to take it in strides and do it month by month. Now, if you research how much should be an emergency fund online, like most of the time you'll see 3 to 6 months. But what is very important here, that's a generic advice. You have to assess your situation and see like how easy it is for you to get a job if you're to get fired. And this will vary from individual to individual. So you have to check like how often you see job listing in your field if you're employed. Like if you would work on contracts, like if you're self-employed, if the worst was supposed to happen right now, how long will it take for you to get another contract to generate an income? So it will vary from person to person. the easier it is for you to get a job to replace your lost income. Then you'll realize that 3 months emergency fund might do for you 6 months, but it's best to be on the safe side. 1 year would be the minimum I'll be aiming for. And remember, this takes time and discipline and effort, so this is why you're watching this video. So this video will definitely motivate you to build your emergency fund. And I know a lot of you guys are new to even what is an emergency fund. Like, it's very essential for you to have one. So this is a very important step and you don't want to miss this one. You want to ensure that you open separate accounts. You don't want to be spending and building your emergency fund in the same account, because a lot of people are not disciplined enough and they are going to spend it. If your budget was 100,000 to spend 100,000 this month, and when you check your account you see 200,000, your mind is going to tell you that you can take $10,000 out of that 200,000. But not everyone is disciplined enough. For example, my emergency fund and my regular saving and spending account was with the same bank, but not everyone is that disciplined enough to look at $100,000 and not spend it. You have to pretend like that money is not there. So the first of 2 accounts that I want you to open is like a regular savings account. Well, you can open 2 regular savings accounts, and depending on where you are in your investing journey, then you can open like a high yield savings account, depending on where you're watching this from, or a money market account. So the purpose of the first savings account is that it's a short-term emergency fund. So this is going to act like a buffer between you and your actual emergency fund when you get there, because changing a tire is not an emergency fund. Going to the mechanic to fix, like repair a bad part on your car, is not an emergency fund. So those things, those are the little things that your short-term emergency fund is going to be taking care of. So for this, you can aim for like half of your monthly salary. So if you get $100,000 per month, then your first target with this short-term emergency fund is to save $50,000. Now your second account is where you're going to start building up for the long term. So you're going to, if your goal is to save 6 months worth of emergency fund, then after you fund that emergency fund with $50,000, then you start building that long-term fund, because you don't want those little short-term things like going to the doctor just to take care of a cold, and you have to be dipping in your emergency fund to do that. You want to, when you start building it, it is there and uninterrupted. Now, this short-term emergency fund will also protect you from a very serious emergency, a credit card debt. So instead of using your credit card for an emergency, which should never happen in the first place, this short-term emergency fund will prevent you from doing that. Because let's say you make $100,000 per month, and for Christ's sake something happens and you have to spend an extra $10,000. When you put $110,000 on your credit card, assuming your regular expenses are done on your credit card, then when you go $110,000, where is that $10,000 is going to come from to avoid late payment fee and the monthly interest? So that is a recipe for disaster by itself, and a shorter emergency fund will definitely protect you from it. Now for your second account, it depends on where you are in your financial literacy. So as previously mentioned, you can go with a high yield savings account or a money market account, right? So you don't want, when you're ready to access your money, if you had like $100,000 saved, it only value $80,000. So you want to protect yourself against inflation while you're building that emergency fund. So you want to be technically investing your money as you go along. But for this, you don't want to be investing in anything at all that is risky. You want to keep it as minimal risk as possible. So 3% is good, 4% is good, 5% is good. And make sure that fund is really easily accessible, because you don't want to have it locked up where you have to reach a certain criteria before you can access that money. Or you don't want to face any form of penalty when you are accessing that money. So for example, you don't want to lock up your money in an account for 1 year, and if an emergency happens at 9 months and you're going to pull out your money at 9 months time, then you're going to be facing some penalties based on the institution that you are saving your money with. So to reiterate, if you're a spender and you don't have any form of discipline money, it's ideal and recommended that you open those 2 accounts at another institution. So the money is out of sight and out of mind. So you're not going to have access to that money easily. So that will keep you in check from your spending habits. Now the 4th thing you want to do is set up automatic transfers. You don't want to leave this by any chance, because guess what? The mind, I don't know why the mind works like this, because if it's something to spend or do anything like that, you're going to remember to do it on a monthly basis. But if it's something productive, if it's supposed to save the money, if it's supposed to invest the money, for some reason, the mind is not going to remember to do it on the regular schedule. So you want to have the transfers automated. If you are going to set up the account at another institution, you might have a little ACH fee depending on which bank you're using, but it better you pay a little fee for the convenience than having to go and do it manually and then you forget about it. So you can log into your online banking, set up a schedule. So if you know you're going to get paid like the 25th of every month, then you can set up the transfer to happen on the 27th to be safe, because you know some employer, for some reason, they might delay the employee's pay and they might not get it on the regular schedule. And another way you can also do this is by a method of salary deduction. So this will even cut out the fees that you have to pay on your end. So you go to your payroll department to provide them with the bank account number for the institution and ensure that you have a salary deduction in place. So if you're going to do 20% of your salary, that will be automatically deducted from your paycheck for you. Out of sight, out of mind, you don't see when it's happening. So now you're going to be pretending like if you're making $100,000 per month, then you're going to be making $80,000. Only that you have to spend for the month. You're going to make it work. Now the next thing you want to do is jumpstart your emergency fund. What do I mean by this? Let's say you've been saving, or you're a good saver and you have $200,000 saving a separate account a long time. Guess what? You can convert this into your emergency fund. So if you wanted $1 million emergency fund, now you only have $800,000. So this makes your work easier for you to achieve. Now the next thing you want to do is that anything that you can sell to build up this emergency fund, you are going to need to do it. So if you can sell like an extra pair of shoes, then go ahead and do it. Is there any furniture in the house that you really don't need that you can sell? Go ahead and do it. You have to start seeking the extra money from wherever you can find it to put towards your emergency fund. So if you have like 2 TVs, get rid of one of them, sell it. You don't need to watch 2 TVs all at once. And if you're going to say, oh, it's your son or daughter's own, then they watch the one main TV. Simple as that. I don't know what's up with human beings, but they have a tendency to start spending money before they get it. So if they're going to get a salary increase, or if they're going to get a bonus, they make spending plans for that money before they even see it. Remember, if the money is not in your account, it's not your own. Anything can happen and you don't get it. I'm just saying, anything can happen and you don't get it. It's not yours until it's in your bank account. So the payment or lump sum you might be expecting next week based on your projections, anything can happen and you can't get it until 2 years time. So bad habit to be spending money that you don't already have. So whenever you get these extra monies, you want to be shoving them in your emergency fund. Overtime money, if you work it, guess what? It's not for spending. Very, very, very bad habit to be spending your overtime money. That money should be invested, and like I said, put towards the emergency fund. So someday in the future, it can protect you, as well as you don't have to be working, because you invest that money to work for you. So it will technically buy your time in the future. And the same concept applies for retroactive payment. If you're going to get some extra money, emergency fund. It's not for spending. If you don't have any emergency fund, when you get these monies, you don't want to have any form of spending plans for them, because guess what? emergencies happen, and you don't want, when the emergency do happen, if it happens, then you are going to have to be running to the banks for money to borrow and paying extra interest on money that you didn't really have in the first place. So let's say emergency happen and you only reach $1 million and the emergency costs $2 million. Then you guess what? You already have half of it. So the amount of money that you need to borrow is split in half. So the interest that you're going to be paying is split in half. So anyway you take it, it's going to be beneficial for you. And if you have nice hair and nails and you don't have an emergency fund, cut it out. The money where I use go nail tech and hairdresser one time. Sort out the emergency fund first, then you take care of all of that. If you bank your money on a monthly, weekly basis and you don't have an emergency fund, guess what? Take it, pay your emergency fund. Those things are more important than nice pretty looks. And for the man them, I say them look fresh. For the woman them, because I end the idea that woman you like is going to cost you extra money. Make sure instead of buying that extra clothes to look fresh, make sure you put that extra $25,000 in an emergency fund first. You have to secure yourself financially, then you start looking the look. And the last thing you want to do is increase your income. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what type of work you do now. You could be earning $7,000 per week. Guess what? You have the same 24 hours. You have the same access to majority of the resources that can improve and build your skills. You need to start using this. There's nothing out there that is limiting you or preventing you to develop some skills and additional income so you can contribute that to your emergency fund as well. I've done several videos on affiliate marketing. That's one avenue. Start asking yourself what kind of skill you can learn that you can go there and apply tomorrow in the working world to generate additional income. And guess what? Building multiple streams of income is no rocket science. All you have to do is just do the research and put in the work. And over time, you'll reap the benefits of it. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.